Welcome to Lesson 5 in Unit 8, Putting on a Show with Light and Sound. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how can we create musical instruments for our shadow puppet show? In this lesson, students use the engineering design cycle to revisit their instrument design and construct and test their own prototypes to use in the puppet show. Students figure out that you can use science ideas and the engineering design cycle to design an instrument that makes different sounds. And students make connections to the storyline by investigating how their musical instrument designs can make music for their puppet show. There are several opportunities for ELA and social studies cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 8 teacher guide. This lesson will take approximately 4 days to complete. To begin the Engage portion, you'll review with students that they've learned about communication using special devices and instruments. They've also been working as engineers to build instruments that can help them communicate. You'll go back to the engineering design cycle and ask what steps they have already completed, what the problem is, and what research they've done to help solve the problem. You'll revisit the driving question board and add any new questions and highlight others connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions about how we can create musical instruments for the puppet show. For the Explore portion, students will do steps 3 and 4 of the engineering design cycle. Choose best ideas and construct a prototype. You'll ask students what they need to do next to solve the problem and how they'll go about it. You'll have students work in their engineering teams to share their models from the musical instrument drawing student journal page. Teams must decide on one model to build. They can combine ideas from each model or vote on one they want to build. You'll remind students to use recycled materials and direct them to the musical instrument rubric student journal page. Once students have agreed on the instrument they will make, you'll have them use the materials to build their prototype. You can post and discuss the prototype vocabulary card. Students will then move on to step 5, test and evaluate their prototype. Once their models are created, teams will test their instrument designs. You'll discuss what evaluate means and how students will test and judge their prototypes. You can post the evaluate vocabulary card. For the Explain portion, you'll move on to step 6 of the engineering design cycle, Communicate. You'll bring the class together and lead a discussion about students' musical instruments. You'll allow them to take turns sharing their instruments. You'll use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how can we create musical instruments for our shadow puppet show? For the Elaborate portion, you'll ask students about the effect of putting all of their instruments together and how they can create a tune for their puppet show that communicates a feeling. You'll also discuss using the instruments to tell a story. For the Evaluate portion, you'll use the musical instrument teacher rubric journal page to assess students on their instrument designs. Students should discuss with you how their instrument makes sound, can communicate with the audience, and change pitch and volume. To support student sense-making across the unit, you'll orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, did we answer any of the questions on our driving question board? If there are questions that have been answered, remove them from the driving question board and place them on the summary charts. You can use this as an opportunity to build a class consensus model to answer the section driving question, how can we use sound to put on a puppet show? You can have students use the self-check form to evaluate their own learning in this section. This is an instructional tool that can be used as a metacognitive practice for students to reflect on their learning, express their engagement and excitement levels for topics they have learned so far. This tool will also allow students to reflect on their science identities and community. By the end of this lesson, students will have used recyclable materials to design, test, and evaluate an instrument for the puppet show. In Lesson 6, students will begin to explore how to use light in the puppet show by investigating how light affects what we see. For the optional Extend, students can go to Step 7 of the engineering design cycle, Redesign, to make any final tweaks to their instruments. They can use their Musical Instrument Redesign Student Journal page to redesign their instrument. You can go over the Redesign vocabulary card. For more information about this unit, visit myscipartners.com.